I have to change some schedule. The interpersonal cardiology are always challenging, and there is no set rule how to manage your case. Always it is in emergency. As because emergency, Dr. Devabrata Bhattacharya is waiting for primary PCI call. So I am requesting before going to cath lab, if he is able to share his slide, then he can present his talk. How can imaging helps with best outcome? Dr.
Okay.
Devdutt Bhattacharya, can you share a slide?
Okay. So thank you very much, and I do apologize for asking this favor of the organizers to get my lecture in front of the scheduled lecture. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the organizers, and my apologies to Professor Noor Alam, I think, whose lecture was due. So I will be brief. My topic is how can imaging help obtain best outcomes? I'm going to present my lecture based on two cases. In one case, I have used intravascular ultrasound, and in another, I have used OCT. So this is my first case. This is a 71-year-old diabetic gentleman who is a smoker with chronic obstructive lung disease who presented with unstable angina and chest discomfort radiating to the jaw on exertion. I hope you can hear me. Can I have some feedback? So despite maximal anti-anginal therapy for 6 months, he was having symptoms. He had normal LV function on baseline, hypertensive, diabetic, as already mentioned, and these are his blood results. His creatinine is slightly high, and blood sugar and hemoglobin are reasonably controlled. So here we can see the angiogram, and you can see that the circumflex is dominant. There is a stenosis at the origin of the circumflex, then there is some disease downstream, and there is also some disease at the ostium of obtuse marginal artery. And you can also see the stenosis at the ostium of the left anterior descending artery. So these are the lesions that we have to deal with. And our strategy was based on intravascular imaging. We wanted to look at the various stenosis and make a plan here. So here is an IVUS pullback from the LAD to the LMCA, and you can see the IVUS cuts at various parts. What I want you to really concentrate on is this ostium of the LAD. You can see this is 2.79. There is heavy plaque burden here. So this is a significant lesion. Sometimes you are in the ostium of the circumflex, and we were concerned that that would result in plaque shift and compromise of the LAD. The LAD was significant. And what IVUS shows us that it is indeed significant. The good feature, however, is that the landing zone in the distal LMCA is free from significant disease. There is plaque there, but there isn't a significant stenosis. So this is like a 0-1-1. So this is an IVUS pullback from the circumflex now, and here we are showing you the various points of interest. This is our distal landing zone first, then this is the zone where the obtuse marginal rises from, and this is the ostium of the circumflex. And again, you can see that the ostium of the circumflex is heavily diseased with a large plaque burden of 76%. So we began by serial pre-dilatation of the circumflex. We began by taking a 2.75 by 12 and then a 3 by 12 non-compliant balloons, and we gave high pressure balloon dilatations at 16 and to 24 atmospheres serially. You can see that this distal lesion doesn't want to give way very easily. As you can see, this proximal lesion as well. There is this little waste. We always feel that it is very important to pre-dilate these chronic lesions, fibrotic lesions, so that when we deploy the stents get deployed easily. So once we had done that, we pre-dilated the ostium of the first obtuse marginal artery because we thought it was tightly diseased. And you can see how it looks after dilatation. And here we decided that we had to stent this vessel. So after bed preparation, we did a stenting to the LCX-OM1, and you can see the stent in the LCX. It's a 2.25 by 24 millimeter stent, and we have a balloon in the main circumflex. And once it is dilated, we carefully try to not come into the main circumflex, and the angle here is quite favorable. So after we had deployed the stent, we did a dilatation with a 3x12 NC balloon in the circumflex, and then we were able to pass two stents down, first a 3x28, and then we dilated the stent. We dilated the proximal part of the circumflex with the stent balloon, and we took another stent, which was positioned from the circumflex into the into the LMCA. Now, once we had done that, we are doing a culotte here. So we rewired the LAD through the circumflex stent struts and pre-dilatation of the circumflex stent into the LAD with a 2x12. Then we did a kissing balloon dilatation with a 3 into 12 NC into the LAD and a 3.5 into 12 NC in the circumflex. After that, we positioned a 3x32 millimeter stent in the LAD. There was some difficulty in wire recross and balloon progression into the circumflex stent, but we eventually managed to do that. So this is the second kissing balloon dilatation, the 3.5/12 and the 3.5/8, respectively in the LAD and the LCX. And we finished by doing a final pot with a 4x12 atmospheres, 4x12 NC at 24 atmospheres in the distal LMCA. So this is the final result after T-stenting at OM circumflex and culotte stenting of the LCX LAD. And these were our areas of interest that we wanted to address. And this is the final pullback from the LAD to LMCA. And I'll show you the final IVUS images. So these are the final IVUS images from the LAD ostium, the circumflex ostium, the distal, the polygon of confluence, and then the distal LMCA. So let's ask ourselves, why do we need intravascular imaging in bifurcation lesions? Where does imaging really matter? What is the evidence base in favor of intravascular imaging in bifurcation stenting? The evidence says that the really strong evidence in favor of IVUS in bifurcations are in LMCA bifurcation. Intravascular ultrasound in left main PCI was found to have a mortality benefit in a study by Park et al. As early as 2004. The much discussed and seminal paper of Kang et al. published the 5, 6, 7, 8 criteria for distal left main stenting. And this figure has been further refined by data analyzed from the Excel trial by Mintz et al., who suggested a slightly bigger diameter of 7, 8, 9, 10 instead of the previous criteria. So that brings me to the end of the first case. I don't know how much time I have left to go into the second case. So this is a case done by OCT guidance. This is again a 74-year-old male diabetic hypertensive admitted with dyspnea on exertion and chest discomfort. Cardiac troponin was not raised, and the echo showed RW in the inferior wall. Now, this is the angiogram from 2012. You can see the LAD was already diseased there. There appeared to be a plaque rupture there, and this was the RCA in 2012. But the patient insisted on medical management, and that was what he was on until this year, a couple of months ago. And here you can see that the RCA is occluded. The disease in the LAD has remained more or less the same. And now there is also, disease in the circumflex, which was not diseased earlier. So this is triple vessel disease. We tried to persuade the patient to have a CABG, but he wouldn't, given the considerations of the pandemic. He didn't want to stay in the hospital for long. So we said we'll try to do the RCA first. And this is our attempt at wiring the RCA, which was a CTO, and we were able to wire it. And after that, we did serial pre-dilatations with 1.5, 2.5, and then 3 millimeter balloons. We made sure that the RCA was well dilated, and here you can see that the PDA and PLB are also quite diseased. We decided to land our stent in the crux of the RCA and not go into the PDA or PLB. And once we had done that, we did some post-dilatation, and here was our final RCA result. which we thought was reasonable. And if we had to do work in the other vessels, so we did not go into anything, do anything into the smaller branches here. The circumflex artery we dealt with next, and you can see there is disease in the ostium of the circumflex and also in the mid segment. The plan was to do a POVA to the LCX with a cutting balloon and stent only in case of a dissection, which we did here. You can see we are doing a 3.5 by 6 Wolverine cutting balloon. And we did a OCT run at the end of it. And although it looked okay on angiography, I'll show you what you can see on OCT here. You can see the cuts, and you can see there are 2 areas of dissection here, and the dissection is extending into the media by OCT. We have the proximal and distal landing zones. So we know we have to stent it. So this is a 3.5 by 33 millimeter DES at 10 atmospheres. We did post dilatation with a 3.5 by 15. And then this is an OCT run, which shows you that the stent is a little bit under deployed with the slight malapposition at the ostium of the circumflex. But the rest of the stent is quite nicely opposed with good lumen areas. So what we did next was we took 3.5 by 15 and did further optimization. And this was the final result of the LCX. The LAD we wanted to do a little later because we had already used a lot of contrast, but the patient insisted. And we did an RFR, and the RFR was significant at 0.81. So we put 2 wires in the LAD and the diagonal. We did not want to do a 2-vessel stenting LAD diagonal. So we did a POVA to the diagonal and pre-dilatation into the LAD with a 3.5 with a 3 by 12. And then we stented it with a 3 by 33 at 14 atmospheres. The post-dilatation was with a 3.5 millimeter balloon. And then we rewired the circumflex. Now, the LAD was slightly into the left main as covered the ostium of the LAD. So we had to go in through the LAD wire, LAD struts into the circumflex. And what happened after this was that we couldn't pass the balloon into the circumflex despite having the wire passage so easily. So we did an OCT from the LAD, and this is what it showed. You can see that the wire into the circumflex stent strut has passed through a very crowded region of struts here. And that is the reason why we were unable to pass anything. So we rewired. There was a much bigger area to pass the wire, and we rewired. And now we could do a kissing balloon dilatation, as you can see. After we had done that, we did a final OCT run through the circumflex. And this was our result now. And you can see that circumflex stent is actually also quite well deployed. I didn't have the time, so I cut off the LAD stent run. So OCT run in the LAD. So this is our final angiographic result. The OCT of the LAD was also quite satisfactory. You just have to believe me. And you can see that both the stents are landed nicely and well expanded, and we checked it by OCT as well. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, coronary atherosclerosis is a slow progressive disease, and intervention is most effective during phases of instability. As in this case, such patients as the one under question should always be offered CABG, which we did. Proper consenting and discussion is important, and a surgeon should be able to see the patient face to face, which happened in this case, and all of the above was carried out in this patient. We told the patient that the culprit artery causing the ACS, which in this case was the RCS CTO, would be addressed first. The patient was made aware that if this failed, he would go for CABG. The circumflex was attempted next, and as it appeared more severely diseased than the LAD, and there was a favorable angle and a landing zone of the circumflex short of the LMCA. The OCT was done to optimize the results of the circumflex stent. We made sure that the LAD needed intervention by doing an RFR. And then we did stenting to the LAD. Again, OCT guided optimization of the LAD stent was carried out, and examination of the LAD LCX carina was done. And it showed how the wire in the circumflex artery that was going through the LAD stent struts was not not favorable, and we repositioned and did a final kissing balloon successfully. So triple vessel disease in diabetics are more prone to recurrence, and every attempt should be made to optimize the results of PTC in such patients. In this patient, both OCT and RFR helped in decision making and optimum expansion and apposition of the stented vessels. Thank you very much.
Debabrata, it's a very excellent
much.
presentation, but I have a not question, but I want to know regarding imaging, which one is better, IVUS or OCT in your perspective?
I think these are complementary imaging modalities, sir, and I have found that in LMCA, I have done more IVUS, so I feel more comfortable with IVUS. If your LMCA is short, then sometimes it is difficult to image the proximal part of the LMCA because the catheter is sitting there. And if you remove the catheter out of the ostium, then you are unable to opacify the vessels. So that is a technical problem with OCT, which also we experienced in this case. And in such cases, I think IVUS is a easier modality. However, for bifurcations, as you saw in this second case, if your wire recross is not adequate and you're having some problem, then OCT sorts it out much better. It actually shows you the 3D reconstruction, shows you very, very elegantly through which strut the wire has crossed. And based on that, you can make informed decisions. So far as calcific lesions are concerned, I think OCT probably scores a little bit better than IVUS. And if I had a very difficult calcific lesion to treat, I would consider doing OCT instead of IVUS. If the contrast usage is a concern, then I think I would choose again IVUS. The HD IVUS has a slightly, I would say, better resolution, near field resolution than the previous IVUS that we were used to. And it is a matter of which modality is suitable for which patient. So we choose based on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Devdatta. I am Professor Mir Jamal. I have some query regarding the
Yes.
first case. Why you have chosen the culotte?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. This case before everyone asked me that. What we felt in this case was that the main bulk of the disease was in the circumflex. So if we did a LAD to LMCA stenting, and then we wanted to do a provisional stenting, then a lot of difficulty could be faced because we had to get those two long stents down. And then we had that obtuse marginal artery there that needed addressing. So we wanted to finish the circumflex part of the work first. Now you could argue that you could go for a crush. Why didn't I go for a crush technique for the second circumflex stent, which was in the LMCA, and why did I put it into the LMCA? And that was because the circumflex was a large dominant vessel, and the diameter of the circumflex was a little more than the LAD in this case, which is why I thought that this was a case that was suitable for the culotte stenting. If you were to do a stenting in this case, meaning that you have finished everything and now you want to do you have sorted out the circumflex, the obtuse marginal, and the proximal stent. You just positioned it in such a way that you wanted to do a crush. It is possibly an alternative, but in this case, if the circumflex is a very large vessel and that amount of stent in the LMCA that would be there, as a result of which there would be, we thought there would be more metal. There would be more metallic mesh in the circumflex part of the stent, circumflex part of the carina, which we didn't want because the circumflex was the more diseased vessel. So we wanted to really address the ostium of the circumflex very well, which is why we took this circumflex stent into the LMCA.
That's right. But there is an alternate option was also a decay crash.
Yes, yes, that is what that of course is the alternate option.
Thank you. Thank you for your very interesting two cases. Due to the time shortage, we can't discuss. Otherwise, it would take another half an hour, as because you have shown us very interesting two cases. To switch over on the next speaker.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya.